Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode, got we on 8, I think, of the Frey podcast. I might have got that wrong. I'm with Femi and Dewan, as per usual, and we have got the very special, the big boy Ellis in the building. One of the reasons why we are called the Frame Podcast. Ellis, it's beautiful to have you on once again.
Yeah, thank you very much, Neil. Big shout outs to Femi and the one. It's Big Boy Ellis. Hi guys and everything.
Come to the town.
It's
Welcome to
been
the
a minute,
Frame
guys. Yo,
once
look
again.
for real. It's like I've got 1,000 things I want to say at the same time, but then it's been a long time. I've had this even with you guys on the regular. Remember, like back in the days when we'll just sit down all days and shoot the shit, basically, for hours on end. And so for me, this is huge. I mean, all the way from Ottawa, Canada, by the way.
How is life out there now? How would you find it compared to... Actually, have we got another guest?
We've got Emmanuel, he joins.
Yes, we do, man. Man, Jay in the building.
Oh, this is amazing! And a special guest for 2 weeks in a row. We have Emmanuel.
Yes, yo.
Brilliant.
Yo. Yes, this is
Oh, God. This was just a surprise.
We were just starting off the recording and you popped up as well.
Yeah. Oh, this is great. Good time to
Nah,
have me then.
it's good to
Have you seen who were on the call, Manny?
Uh,
Did I see Brother Ellis?
yeah.
Ooh, where is he, man? Where
Exactly.
is
We
Yo,
got Nigeria in the building.
he? Jump for life.
Emmanuel, man, what's up, man? It's been a minute.
I know, man. I'm so happy to hear from you, man.
Yeah, I see. Look, dude, man, I know, even though now it's all distance and everything between all of us, but I think thanks to social media, so I keep updated. I see your Johnson EE. I see, your social media, your IO visuals and everything. I'm a big supporter, but the thing is, we live life, so sometimes you don't have all the time. So on the other end, which is your end, you may not know how much we still appreciate what you do, but life just takes over. But inside is like, yo, what's up with that guy and everything. Yeah, so but
Yeah,
yeah,
thanks for
props,
saying
man.
that, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate
mad
that.
props. Yeah, I see you,
Thank you,
bro.
man.
That's what I'm saying.
Thank you, man.
Right.
Yo, Brother Ellis. I'm so happy to hear from this guy, man. It's been a while.
Yo,
I have-
Femi, Dewan, should we just leave? It's all good. I'm so happy. I can't believe the five of them back together again.
I know,
Out
man.
of nowhere. Oh, this is amazing. Thank you, Manny.
Yeah, you're welcome. Man.
Word, man.
You're
Word.
welcome.
So
I
yeah,
mean,
Ellis,
Thanks,
I
man.
have,
What is
I
your
have a
life
fond memory
like?
of Ellis.
how is life
Mhm.
in Ottawa now?
In
Moving
Ottawa-
from
Yeah.
going from Coventry to Lagos back to like you international traveler,
Yeah, I guess now that's what someone said that to me. Said now I've become a global traveler. Like you never know when this is gonna happen. It's just life happening, right? So it was, Africa and Europe, Africa, North America. You know, I yeah, it's been quite interesting. I must say, especially the part about moving from Europe to Africa. That is quite a switch. It's quite different from moving from Africa to Europe, or say maybe moving from Europe to, because I actually came from Europe. I was in Europe and then came to North America. So it was, yeah, because it was like from France and then into Montreal. And Montreal is also French, so it wasn't too much of a switch there, and then onto Ottawa, which is just like, I think, say an hour by car at normal speeds from Ottawa. And Ottawa actually is the capital. I know Toronto is the most popular city in Canada and everything, but this is the actual administrative and political capital of Canada. So that's where I'm at. It's the government. Yeah, nice place, chill. It's a sort of big city with a small town feel, if you get what I mean. Yeah, it's actually a bit spread out, but it's, the life is a bit more small town than, say, Montreal or Toronto, but like you've got the embassies and all that stuff here.
So what was France like, and to be over in France? Because I know that's been one of your dreams for a while, to be over in France and experience the culture and the music that comes from there has been a big influence on you as well. So
Yes,
how was that?
thank you. See, I must say, now let me say something. I actually didn't spend a lot of time in France, just because of logistical reasons. And also, I don't speak French, so that is a problem. I mean, that is sort of a disincentive to want to keep being in there, if you get what I mean. Because it's not, I can't talk like I'm talking right now, you know what I mean? So, it's not like I had a guide or something, So,
how was the
yes,
experience? Because you were going to say, 'cause I
still,
remember the amount of artists and stuff that have come from France. I know
yeah,
have influenced you in the past.
and let me say, the late Nigerian jazz drummer, if you will, Tony Allen, had a lot of contact.
yes.
Yeah, he died recently. He actually died the day before I dropped my first
Alright.
ever release, EP. I think it was April the 30th. So he had a lot of contact with France. The president of France was in Nigeria, and he went to visit the shrine, Fela Kuti. Yes, the president of France. So because I think as a younger person, he worked as a sort of mini diplomat somewhere in Nigeria or some part of Africa, something like that. Yeah. So he remembers visiting that place back in the days, and he decided to come back as president. So yeah, France. And let me also say that, especially with jazz music and with hip hop music, France, I think a lot of jazz music comes from that place. A lot of jazz music appreciation comes from France as well. And I also noticed that when I released my EP, I'll talk about that later, but one country that gives me the most streams outside of North America is France. And as a matter of fact, on one of my platforms, France is, gives me the most streams, so so when you talk about France, it's a deep spiritual musical connection that I have. I mean, I have people in France bobbing to my music, and I'm like, whoa, how is this happening? But I remember growing up, I would also listen to French hip hop a lot, even though I didn't understand French, but I just felt it was good. And also Guru of Gangsta, somebody who had a big influence on my life. He worked with a French person called MC Solar. So
Yes.
yeah. So if you remember, so listening to Guru, and all that jazz music, and also MC Solar with LeBron Lamar.
LeBron, yep.
Yeah.
Just about to say that.
LeBron Lamar, and the rest of them really had a big impact on my life. So I had to touch there. And even here in Canada, I live in sort of the French-speaking area as well, which is Ottawa, Gatineau, Quebec. So I'm close to Quebec, right? So there's French-speaking people around here. So I still have that sort of contact with the language of French, even though I'm at heart an Anglo. so yeah, exactly. So that's that.
Yeah. Well, how are the people?
Coming over. Yeah.
Sorry, man. I'm still hyped.
Please stay on. You're more than happy, Emmanuel.
I could hear in my head click, click, kaboom. Ellis, you guys know what I'm talking about.
Oh god, I remember filming that
Which
video.
track was that? I was on the
Exactly. What can I say?
Ellis and Marvelous.
Yeah.
We should get him on as well,
Brother
We hopefully will get him on, and you two are more than happy to invite it back at the same time, because there's a lot of energy at the moment going on, and it would be brilliant to bring him in. Habib will be more than happy, but we have to surprise him with it. We have to say it's just me, Dewan, and Femi for now, and then just bring you two in, just as Manny did, because that was a beautiful surprise, Manny.
Thanks, man.
So I'm happy to be here, to be honest. And let me say that I still feel very much in touch with the UK. Like, I have people actually say to me things like, your musical tastes were influenced by your time in the UK, and that's why you started listening to a lot of house music, a lot of, a lot of electronic music, a lot of acid music, and I'm like, yeah, and it's not like I'm about to lose that. So,
Mm.
yeah, the UK still has a very strong influence on my life,
Mm.
even here in Canada.
Mm. Mm. That's
How's that album going, Ellis? The one that you've got. Is it Copperhead?
Copperfield.
just came in with that one, Duan.
Copperfield. But yeah, right. Copperhead makes sense.
That's how you publicize. That's how we're not top quality at this stuff, but that's sick. Yeah, tell a bit more about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, Copperfield, basically, if you guys remember, oh my God, I can't even start talking about all our times and all the fun times. Basically, the highs and the lows back at uni.
Yeah.
But something I remember towards the end of our studies, or just at the end, I think we had just finished everything. And all we needed to do was to go back home and wait for our results to come out or whatever. And I think I went from Coventry to Northampton, and that was when I recorded that track with Habib. And then I just said to myself, hey, I've always loved music, right? Like, I listen to a lot of music. Look, even in my growing up years, I influenced a lot of people musically, like in real life. So back in the days, I was a kid who had records that no one else had. As a kid, I'll have like James Brown records. I'll have like John Coltrane, or maybe some Digging in the Crates crew, or just something, some hip hop from 1992. So I was that kind of kid, and I would give out my records and talk to people about hip hop, so I knew a lot about hip hop, and people sort of expected me to always do something, but I never really did, because somewhat I think I was also nerdy and like to go to school and things like that, so I spent a lot of time doing that. But after we finished from Coventry, that period before we got our results, after recording that track, I said to myself, I had to record something, I just had to do it. And later I moved to Northampton, and then I think within a 10-day period, we recorded those 5 tracks. I think it was a 10-day period, because we would just chill out, and I decided to just do nothing. And, so I just said my bars over that period and then left, and then it was mixed, mastered, and everything. And actually, so it was all that time until now. So it was a almost like 4-year period or so before I put it out, because it's been done all this while, but I just left it. I was just doing other stuff, in like finance, investing, some IT and stuff like that, But having come here, I just felt like, hey, and then someone said to me that, dude, just put it out there, let people just listen to it. Okay, I was like, okay, fine. And then I put it out there, and I must say I've been getting a lot of props for it. Like, people are like, yo, you really know how to spit. I'm like, thank you. Okay. I don't even know what to say, yo.
No,
Yeah.
for sure. Some tracks, and honestly, they're really good, and really good taste of music, and a lot of bars. Shouting it all out there. It's good stuff, man. Honestly, good work, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Who were you
Thanks a lot.
influenced by for this EP as well? So obviously it's a lot of stuff from the 90s and 80s, old school hip hop I'm hearing influence. But who was it? I know you've mentioned Guru before, but who else was there that really inspired you? And also the title Copperfield, like where does that come from?
If you talk about influences, there's so much, but I'll say on a very basic level, the Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, Common. Yeah, I listen to Common as well, and Pete Rock and CL Smooth. and just stuff like that. Stuff like that, but over the years as well, I would also listen to a lot of Brazilian music, bossa nova. So bossa nova is a genre that I like very much. And from bossa nova, I will go into like house and all of that, you know.
All right.
So yeah, but talking about Copperfield was the street that I lived on, was the name of the street that I lived on.
Oh.
Yeah, that was the name of my street.
It was the name of it.
It was walking distance to yours, Neil. Remember?
Okay, that one, yes, because you've lived in so many places. I was not sure which place you're talking about.
Yeah, but
yeah, we used to be all the time, hang out at yours and get work done, and
yeah,
beautiful
exactly,
time.
Exactly. So that was Copperfield. So it was. I couldn't think of any other name because it was just like, okay, all these experiences I've had. I just want to say these things on the mic, and so what name would I call it? I couldn't just think up a name, and then I just said, okay, the name of my street, Copperfield. Okay, that's it.
That's it.
That was a good choice, man.
There's a throwback to essentially an English reference in there as well. Then your reference to your time in Coventry.
Yeah.
So how did you find? So how is the difference now? Because obviously you're in Coventry. So for those of you who don't know, Ellis has been in Coventry for what, 3 years? You're in 3 years, and then now you've gone over to Ottawa. You were saying. So what do you feel that the big cultural difference there is between Ottawa and say Coventry?
You see, Coventry was like, I don't know, maybe like the 7th or the 8th largest city in the UK. Ottawa is something about that range, but maybe a bit bigger, a bit more happening, so to speak. I must say, having come in here during this whole Corona period, it's hard to judge. Now, let me tell you something. The moment I got in, right, because I just got in, not long ago. And the moment I got in, the first thing I did was to go on Eventbrite to look for events like festivals, and then I saw the Ottawa Jazz Festival that was supposed to happen at around, I think now June or maybe July, something like that. And I wanted to buy like tickets, okay, I'll get tickets. And I wanted to buy tickets, and I saw it was for $100. I didn't mind. I was going to buy it. And next thing, it was all bought. Like there was no tickets anymore.
Oh, wow.
So all the tickets was bought. Yeah. Like this was like 5 months to the event.
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah. And also I hear a lot about the influence of Montreal down here, because I hear, Montreal is happening. It has lots of events. It's, nightlife is a lot better and stuff, So I wouldn't say I've had a chance to really assess Ottawa properly, but I think, given everything that I've seen, I would imagine that at normal circumstances, it should be happening a lot more here, socially and otherwise, here in Ottawa, much more than in Coventry.
I think so
too. You got some pretty nice views over there, though, around Canada, right next to the border as well. You're in a good spot, man.
Yeah, exactly. It's I must say, like, Ottawa is a beautiful place. I won't lie, and it's about 7 or 8 hours by car to New York City. So it's actually closer to New York than Toronto is. I found out. Yeah, so it's all here in the East, right? So you go to where you want to go. And I know there's lots of places in Canada. Canada is such a big country. It's so large. Like Ontario is bigger than whole entire countries put together. Yeah. So for instance, like Ontario is like maybe 3 times, I don't know, maybe thereabouts of 3 times about the size of France or something. Just one province. And then there's British Columbia out there in the west, and then there's Alberta and the rest of them. So yeah, it's a lot to see out here, right? But let's see. I hope everything clears, and then we can make a proper judgment
Yeah, of what?
of what these two cities really are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Just to bring it back to our time at Coventry, obviously you were faculty chair and helped me get elected, and obviously Manny, we were faculty chair at the same time together as well. So yeah, it's been a lot of change in that time. But I was just saying, what were your because obviously that was your first time like in the UK and stuff. What was your most memorable moments of, for example, like coming to Coventry and making the most of it as you're redoing your degree?
I would say my most memorable moments would be, I mean, on a social level, I think it probably would be like time spent with you guys, on a very ordinary social level, no holds barred, no fronting level. It was basically you guys, but, I think, yeah, the faculty chair thing was a good opportunity for one to just demonstrate some of the things you wanted to see change, because as people normally you want to see things get better, right? Regardless of the fact that, say, you see our building, the engineering building, was the best at Coventry University at the time. Yeah, it was easily the best. We had Starbucks and everyone would want to come there to take pictures and stuff like that, but
We had
yeah.
that one aircraft as well, innit?
Yeah, we had the
Exactly. We had the aircraft.
The best thing about Coventry is that aircraft, man.
It's about as big as Coventry as well.
As long as no one's voting for it to be removed now.
No one's voting. No one. But yeah, I mean, the Harrier jet, right? So yeah. So, but despite all of that, see, us, we were like engineers. We hardly had any time if you were really serious with your studies. So you always had to be at lectures or doing some tutorial or even just practicing with your mates. So, but still, there were still things that needed to be improved. So if you notice, there were times when, while we were studying, we were asked to leave, like the alarms went off and we were asked to leave the building through the fire exit. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think
like
I remember.
On a Friday, it was like a Friday morning or afternoon time.
Yeah, but it's happened more than once. Like, I know it's happened more than once. So everyone just goes outside of the building and, because sometimes they have to run those tests with like real life situations, right? So they don't even tell you. It might not be something that just went off by itself. It's something they triggered themselves just to test a scenario where there's an emergency, an evacuation and stuff like that, So yeah, what I'm saying is with the building and all that, even us as students, we had a mandate, an unwritten mandate to let the authorities know what they needed to do better. I mean, they did well by providing us with like the mezzanine floor and then a section with like Apple computers or iMacs, whatever. And just we had everything that we needed, but still there were certain improvements that still needed to be made. So it was our duty as students to point them out because we were the actual guinea pigs in the lab.
We're the first people there.
Yeah, so these were some of the things that we had to do. And we also had to organize events with some of the senior lecturers and supervisors and stuff like that. So it was quite, and then, of course, attend meetings and respond to emails and all of that stuff. So it was a bit tasking at times, but we managed to do it. And I'm happy. I listened to Emmanuel talk about, what it taught him about confidence, knowing how to speak in the presence of people and all that stuff. That's really the takeaway. When you look at it, like in hindsight, you become a much more rounded person in terms of dealing with people and understand managing. Because it's not just technicals. It's not just knowing how to create stuff, but you also have to deal with people. So experiences like that help with, so yeah.
Surprise, Manny. I sent him the podcast that we did like 2 hours just before you joined, and lo and behold, somehow you turned up on this one.
Exactly.
It's perfect, man. It's
I love it.
how this shit should be.
Exactly. Exactly. I listened. Look. I listened to the whole thing. Like it's not
Wow.
even long ago, right? Yeah, I listened to the whole thing. Telling you, man, from start to finish.
You surprised
That's
us.
a
We
whole
surprised you,
hour
Manny.
more.
I know, man. This is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. I don't know if I can jump in, but I definitely
for it.
agree with everything.
Yeah.
that you said.
That
Yeah, I was reflecting earlier today about
Mhm.
education and part of what it means to be educated after going to uni. And I was just thinking about how, for me, the experiences that we get in classrooms don't really reflect most of my experience in a way. So most of the good things I leave university with are things that I gained outside of the classroom. And I would say that I learned more from experiences outside of the classroom than experiences in. So I'm very grateful for that, and I'm really grateful that I got the experience of coming to terms with something that I was scared of initially, and in a way facing that fear, and it's like work experience against fear for life, and that is that is so useful in whatever you choose to
Whatever you
later
do,
on.
yeah. You become really ambitious and ever ready to confront challenges as they appear.
That's true.
Definitely, man. Because what we remember, Ellis, is that after the year of your faculty chair, it was me that took over with the help of Manny. Also, just because I wasn't sure that I was going to beat out the guy that I was running against. So Manny had my back. Well, but he was like, "Look, I can't have your back officially, but I'm going to try and help you when I
I
can."
know, yeah, of course. Hey, no, you're revealing that secret, right? You
I mean,
couldn't have
what can they
said
do?
this
And
back
also,
then.
there
You
was
couldn't
a
have
lot
said
of
this
corruption in
back
that
then.
place, so I had to reach out. So I had people on my side to help me out. But yeah, man, I know exactly what you mean. Just leading teams, like with my
Yeah.
it was so awesome though, and I've still got Femi. I know Manny, Dwan, and Femi have seen it. When I was down in London for a bit, I had photo frames made of. I'll send you a picture afterwards. But
The
it's
frame.
I think So I've got a literal frame with all the pictures that I've got from uni in it. Obviously, all of you guys are in it, and just some good memories of the times that we've went out. We were staying, talking until, or supposed to be working. Then we end up talking about the same thing we do now, everything, till silly o'clock in the morning. Ellis, you just, I'm like, all right, I'll leave you here. He goes, cool, I'm gonna do some work, and next thing I know, wake up and you're passed out on the couch. And memories like that, which is brilliant.
Like, I'm coming over. It's like 1 a.m. Knock on the door. Who's there?
Yeah.
House.
Habib's another one though.
Yeah.
Habib was another one. We were just about to shut up shop, and he come over and go, man, I remember. I don't know if you remember Femi, Femi and Duan a couple of times. Where it's like, man, I can't do this. And then we'd motivate each other at like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. Look, man, just get 4 more hours and we'll be done with this. And he's like, all right, cool. And then I remember Habib going, I'm going Pasha and I'll be back. So go Pasha, get one of the wraps, and then come back and go, right, let's kill it. And then it was the mentality. The struggle was brilliant though. I wouldn't have changed it, but at the same time, it was worthwhile for all of us.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, and we wouldn't have had this. We wouldn't have had the community, as Manny was saying. It's like the people that you meet along the way was way more valuable than the actual education we got.
Yeah.
And you see something. You see something I'm never gonna forget. I remember the times we used to play Cards Against Humanity, right?
Oh,
and beer pong.
that was
beer pong.
Yes.
Yeah, that is true. And I also want to say something because in regards to what Emmanuel was also saying, that obviously I remembered when I just started uni, I knew that I was like very very shy and in myself. I knew that, but close to the end when I met everyone, when we all came together as a group, I met when Neil, Duan, Ellis, Emmanuel, Habib, when we all came together as a group, the experience I had with you guys basically shaped who I am now. Basically, I became more sure of myself, and I became more confident in myself, and especially Ellis, the what we've called the podcast, the frame. You you always talk about being in the frame. You've got your own frame and whatnot, and that in itself sort of like built who I am today, and I sort of now go off that mantle that that we've sort of talked about during our years at uni, and that's what I've been using ever since, and it's been working well.
I'm so glad you mentioned this now at the time, because I saw a lot of you young guys coming up and everything. I felt that knowledge needed to be shared. You are independent. You're a person of your own, so when I said those things, I meant it in the sense that you needed to start understanding that you needed to take charge of your life sooner than later, like immediately, and be responsible for yourself, because that's something people leave for later, and then they look back and they start to regret, So at that age, I felt it was time for you guys to get it on, and then you were chasing your degrees and all that. So that ambition, I needed to see that being reflected in the way you went about your duties with your academics and all that stuff, because that was the first major challenge you guys had to go at. You needed to make the grades and come out of uni and stuff like that. So you need that energy that you give to stuff, to a challenge. You go at it until you. So when you do that at a younger age, you learn it. It becomes part of you. You become an adult that grows with that sort of mentality. And I don't think, for the most part, you will have issues with going at challenges. Yeah. So I'm glad you took it, man.
It was good, because it definitely shaped my it made my opinions of things a lot more straightforward
and clearer.
Exactly, I can say a lot more clearer, and you can know when someone is bullshitting you. You can know when they're not, and stuff like that. So it was really helpful, and I really did like your teachings, in that sense. And also,
okay, go on.
Oh no, I was just about to say that obviously, like, that's the sort of mentality we are like using for this podcast. That's why we actually now call the Frame Podcast.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much for the prompts. Yeah, and I appreciate it. I'm so happy. Like, say, before I came on, right, I decided to just go look for your podcast, like previous editions, and I was just listening. I was like, whoa, this is really, really nice. And I was so eager. I just all of a sudden became so eager. I remember I reached out to you guys like, let's do tests. I want to test my microphone. I don't know. Yeah, remember I had to do tests, because I haven't used this in a while and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm glad to be here. Yo, guys, it's been a minute, man, and a lot of water has crossed under the bridge. Like,
let's go, brother Ellis.
Oh God.
So yeah.
You know what's funny as well, though, the fact that we've got this social media, obviously, that keeps us still together. But don't you feel like when you were mentioning that card against humanity, doesn't it feel like it's 2020 against humanity right now?
You're right. You're right.
So true.
2020 against humanity.
Yeah. See, guys, I don't know. Maybe where do we even start? Like, I remember, I think it was end of last year, and there was talk of some virus or something like that. But just take a look, man. The whole of 2020, or should we say just the end of 2019 / early 2020, and then up till now. So I would say from the end of February till this time, not a lot has happened. You know, stock markets and all sorts of like indices have been on the downside, you know, seeing heavy slumps in prices, in commodity prices like oil, you know. So yeah, so imagine what it must be like for those countries that have their budgets or their finances hanging on the price of crude oil.
Yeah,
It's
Nigeria for one. Nigeria.
We've been saying, we've been saying it's a new era for everybody. Everybody's gotten time off. For example, this is why we started this. It's because literally we're all at home, and I was like, oh, we've not caught up in a while, and I've been saying like, lads, let's do a podcast, and we finally got the time. Dewan works like super late and super hard, so he's not had the opportunity. But we finally got around to it, and there's been a lot of prep work. There's three of me, Dewan, and Femi have done a lot of work in the background to get this going, and it's given us that opportunity to explore another avenue. And from what, well, hopefully the viewers will see as well, I think we're doing well so far, and it's only going to get better from here. Here's hoping with great audiences and the topics we talk about, and from even Ellis, how we used to talk. It just, without trying to sound too egotistical, it feels like, right, we can make an impact in the world. So me, Femi, and Dewan are all like the oldest, so we kind of not have this responsibility, but if we can help somebody in some way, and as Femi was saying to yourself, Ellis, like that you've helped him, if we could do that to somebody else, or if we could inspire change or conversation, especially in this time, then we've kind of done our job. And also I think this can live on in the memory of other people and the internet. So if anything does happen, then we've got something that we weren't just doing the 9 to 5. We weren't just helping out with this. We were trying to do something else on top of that. And so we're all trying it. So that's the thing. That's the thinking behind this. And obviously, it's been brilliant having Manny on last week, having you both on now, to have this experience where we can catch up with old friends and share memories and stuff. So even if it goes nowhere, which it might do, and we're fine, totally fine with that. We had a go at it, and we had fun as we went.
Yeah, true that.
I appreciate that.
Very.
But you know, there's a saying though that goes, never despise the days of humble beginnings. Yeah.
True.
So never, because I know this from experience, man. Never, because that's what things actually build. Sometimes they just add, sometimes they compound. So you never know. You have the motivation for a bigger goal, but you actually would have never gotten there if you didn't start from somewhere to even start to aim really high. You know what I mean? So yeah, you never really know though. So
I'll speak on behalf of these guys as well, but we've been loving to like fall in love with the journey almost, even though we're not where we want. We're fine where we want to be, and having you guys on has been a brilliant example of we're just enjoying the time that we're currently doing this, and I think that comes across to everybody listening and all that kind of environment as well. So yeah, so I think it's going fine so far with Dewan and Femi as well. There's definitely improvements we can make. But for now, we're just totally fine with how it is.
Yeah, no, that's very.
I think it's exactly that is the fact that we're enjoying it, and to hear you Ellis and Emmanuel back on, and I mean I haven't heard you guys for such a long while, and it's nice to hear your voice again, have your views, and to share. Exactly that that's what I'm enjoying. It's not about just people listening. I mean, feel free to listen if you want. If you don't, just don't turn up, obviously. But I'm enjoying this experience. That's the thing.
That's true.
The essence of the frame is back.
Exactly.
The frame is back. Exactly. Remember that.
We're all back. We're all back. It's
back indeed.
The only thing.
It's white hair, but we're still young and got loads to carry on with.
Yeah, the only thing missing is just us not being together and being inside a car and just driving somewhere.
Exactly, that's what it used to be before.
Can you guys remember? I don't know whose birthday it was. Was it? I don't know. Was it Neil's birthday or I can't remember? But there was a time when all of us were just like, I think we were trying to go to like we were just going to like a club, and was it JJ's that we were at, And if you can remember, Ellis, that there was a time when we were like at the back of the line, and you were just like trying to get to the front.
That was Casper, man.
Yeah, that was after. Actually, it wasn't my birthday. It was after exams. It was the Kusu Awards.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Shit. Fuck. It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember. The
That
one
photo's on the frame, boys. That photo's going up.
Yeah, I remember that. Everyone was dressed in their suit and everything, and were like, that was good.
Maybe, Ellis, you need to explain the story about what was it called? I forgot what the place called, Casbah. We were trying to get into there, and we just hopped the railing and I'd been kicked out.
Oh yeah,
Do you remember, Ellis?
I don't know. I'm trying to remember.
I can remember. There was some dude, like, you were trying to, but I remember that we were trying to get in, and we were at the back of the line, and you were like, "Nah, we're gonna get to the front," and you were just walking through the line. And remember, you were like, we're just like walking through the line and just trying to get to the front. And then there was just this random dude that was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And you actually almost started a fight with the guy. And I was there like, dude, we didn't come here to start a fight. And I think that's when they obviously got Neil and Emmanuel to obviously get off the line, and they jumped the railing.
Yo, I wasn't on the line, man. I was actually watching you guys from somewhere else. I remember it. I wasn't on that line.
Awards.
Oh man, did you? But
yeah, I'm not gonna forget that night.
Long story short, we didn't get in.
You have to explain to one.
Neil, did you guys get kicked out of the club that night? Though?
We did. We never got in.
We never got in. We got kicked out of the line. Of that. I got hoisted, and I'm just standing on the side. And Ellis, in your Ellis ways, which people know about, and you started off, what are you going to do in a proper Nigerian? What are you going to do? What are you going to do to this poor white man in front who's just like, no, you blatantly cut in. And then I'm kicked out. So I'm trying to tell you, Ellis, that look, man, I can't get in the club. They've said I'm not allowed. And then you're like, no. I can speak to them. I can change the ways of the universe.
That was mad. That was mad. I was there.
Yeah.
You know, I was just there, just like thinking, what the hell is going on? And in the end, none of us got in. You just spent the night just walking around like.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember because I finished the exam that day. I finished.
Oh yeah, well, Sheetang was there.
No, it wasn't. It was. I literally finished an exam that day. I went home, got changed.
I was scared shitless, man. What's going on
here? Femi, why would you think Sheetang will be in such a place?
Nah, because come on, because remember there was a time when we were trying to take Sheetang to a strip club. Remember? Like, you can't remember. There was. I remember that time because obviously Sheetang
you meant we. You mean Ellis? I was like, I'm out of this one, but this is funny to watch.
Oh,
I think you were proposing it during our communications class.
Yeah. And I was like, dude.
Okay, whatever. Ellis, when you get angry and you get passionate, it's one of the best things I've ever. You are going to come with me to the strip club. We are going, like, it's brilliant.
Oh my days.
And his whole demeanor is like, no, stay away from caution, stay away from danger, which is understandable. But at the same time, it was brilliant. It was, yeah, them classes were funny.
Yeah. I'm trying not to laugh.
No, feel free, man. That's the fun of it.
We're exam, and we're trying to get Sheetang to study us one question that we couldn't understand. And
I remember he tried to force it. He tried to teach us, and he was like, "It's very easy." And he was trying to show us, and we couldn't understand him because his English was all broken. And we were like, "Look, man,
Yeah.
you told, you gotta fucking teach us."
But also, I get it. At the beginning, I was like, Ellis, why are you behaving like this man? Like, this is not acceptable. And then later on, I remember treating him the same way because it's not that we wanted to disrespect him. It was, this is how he likes to be spoke to.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. Because obviously, we come from a perspective of the Western culture where it's very like, we see each other as equals. And he's very used to like especially in Asia, it's same in Nigeria as well. It's that I'm older than you. I am here, so therefore I'm dominant.
Yeah.
Therefore I can tell you what to do. As same with your culture as well, Dewan. It's you can tell somebody this is how it is, and they don't question. You don't answer back. You just accept. And so from that mentality, I think that's why Ellis. That's why he really was fond of you, Ellis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he wasn't really close to you, Ellis. Like it was like. It's like even when I tried getting close to Cheetan, it's like you can tell it's like nah, I'm not. It's not. If you're not Ellis, you ain't my friend. So it's like I actually noticed that it was very, you communicate with Cheetan.
Yeah, let me say something about cultures that are not Western for the most part.
Yeah.
So talking about like parts of South America, Asia, and Africa, definitely. It's very top down, so to speak. It's, from the top and then down, sort of authoritarian, almost dictatorial. So, yeah, there always has to be like a center of the power. So in the house, it's like the father or maybe the mother in some cases, but in any kind of interaction, there always has to be that. Also, you know how, well, I don't want to go into like politics or anything, but you know how like more previously communist countries used to be, with their laws and everything, very almost draconian for the most part. So yeah, that sort of instilled that sense. So if you notice in such countries, there tends to be more like violence that can be seen like publicly. I'm not saying that there's not violence in Western countries, but people don't see violence towards the other person as anything too extreme. To a very large extent, yeah. So people actually see violence on the streets, violence in homes and things like that, and there's not such law enforcement to always step in such cases. So it sort of builds that hierarchy in almost every interaction that you have. That's not something, but that's something about like the West, it's more liberal, and usually there's not that kind of power distance, between individuals in an interaction, so that can conflict. So if you have someone moving from somewhere in Asia or somewhere in Africa to very westernized countries, a person might experience some form of clash, sort of cultural, in that regard.
I see.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So basically, what you're saying is that Sheetang, obviously, the way Sheetang is due to his culture and due to the way it's been brought up. That's why it's obviously, that way. But also because I've got him on Instagram, he is getting a lot more confident. I'm seeing some of his posts. I'm like, oh shit, Cheetang, you're changing.
Yeah, no, the thing is, one thing I know about lots of young Chinese people is that they like very Western culture. They like, love a lot of basketball, and lots of them that like hip hop music and things like that. But still, when it comes to the government, they still show that allegiance, that sense of loyalty to the Chinese. And anyway, who's to argue with that? Because for the last, say, about 2 decades or so, China has been on the rise, especially economically.
Yeah.
So that translates to something in the pockets. If you can get all that you want in China, why think about America or the UK or Canada? So there's that. So that's why me personally, when I talk about empowerment to individuals, I almost never fail to talk about the financial aspect of it. Now, to a lot of young people, I must say, and let me use this opportunity on this podcast to say this. Yes, I know I'm about music and all that stuff, but let me just say this, right? Every young person should always think about financial freedom, because that is something that makes life and its experiences a lot more different, and yeah, better for the most part,
Yeah.
you know. So think of how to invest. Don't waste your time on unnecessary ventures. Try to learn how to improve on your profits or your riches, so to speak, and your resources and things like that, because that sort of ensures that you have a better life. Why I say this is we don't know where the world is going right now, especially with 2020.
Exactly.
Yeah, we don't know, especially young people, going to universities, coming out, things are not like it used to be before, so you really have to either skill up or just really have something to offer, something of value to offer people so that you can translate that to, wealth, something, stuff like that. So people, especially young people, need to start thinking about that a lot more. The world is changing. We really don't know. I just have a feeling. I mean, with Corona, now we realize that we could actually have online lessons for kids. And let me tell you, I met a student.
Yeah.
I met a student here in Ottawa who told me that he came from abroad to Canada for his master's degree. But because of the coronavirus, the university had been shut down. So everyone's been at home, and they decided to offer the rest of the master's degree online. So he'd been doing or continuing with his studies online. And even now that the lockdown is starting to get taken off, and then restrictions are being taken out by governments and stuff like that, his university has continued to offer the course online. So he's like, then why did I struggle to come to Canada anyway to study a master's degree if I was going to do it online? I mean, I just live in Canada, but I'm not actually attending the uni because of social distance rules or whatever. And I'm in Canada doing the degree that I paid to have it like in class. I'm actually doing it online. So I'm just living the rest of my life in Canada without attending the university. I'm just doing it online. So why do the online here in Canada? Why not do the online back and save my money? So, but what I'm saying is this period has shown us that changes will be made in a lot of things in terms of technology. We don't know where it's going, but I know faster speeds and everything. Everyone talks about 5G, but what I mean is jobs will be lost. If technology improves, jobs will be lost, and there'll be lots of displacements. We don't know where this is going to go. So
I agree. I just want to put in something that we've actually talked on the podcast about before. So we're talking about kind of a more meta thing to kind of what you were talking about, where I think the US was saying 42% of jobs that are currently lost in the coronavirus aren't coming back. So it means that there's going to be a whole, I think, mind shift to what a human being is. If you take it back 100 years, it was you go to, and our education system is still worked this way, where I'm the teacher, you absorb the information, and then you spit it back out to us. Now we're coming to a point where the human being has taken more and more out of the system. Say, for example, for GDP, like if you look at GDP compared to 50 years ago, the jobs was amount of money a company made was directly attached to the amount of people they employed. With the use of technology and stuff now and automation, it's becoming less and less so. So people like Amazon, yes, they do employ a lot of people, but for the amount of money they're making, they're actually not employing as many people as if they were a company, say, 50 years ago or so.
Or not paying enough based on profits.
Exactly. Yeah. So the issue, so I find is that the only way that we're going to survive is because we have to learn to express ourselves. We have to be defined not by our jobs. Now, especially in places like America and stuff, where it's like the hard work ethic and what you do is your job, and even to substance in the UK as well, is what do you do for a job is the number one question they ask. So basically, how much money can you provide for the system, which will eventually take care of me? Now, I think that is going to be, this has put a big strain on things. We've seen during the strictest part of the lockdown which systems need to be in place, which is the police, the ambulance, fire systems, like the care homes and stuff like that. The emergency workers are essentially the essentials to keep a country running. Everything else is a bonus, so that goes towards the economy. So one of the reasons why we started this as well is just try and encourage people, just to kind of backtrack on what you were saying. And I know that we've got this podcast here. I know Manny's got his own stuff with IL and everything, and you've got your own stuff, Ellis, as well. We have to have something to look back on and go, I made this, I've created this something that I can set in stone. And I think we said this before on the podcast, where if you have this and this creative stuff, it's something you can give to your grandchildren. You go, this is what I did, not just stories of, I worked at a job and I did this and I did that, which is important. But again, it's becoming less and less relevant the more the economy comes on, and the more technology plays a big role in our lives.
Yeah.
That is true.
I'll just say, for instance, people remote working. Now, lots of people work remotely, right? Like in IT and all of that. So I don't know, with that, you actually don't need people to be in the office. And so you can actually pay them less, and maybe not employ as much people, you know what I mean? Because you decide to pay him the same amount and ask him to do the job of like 2 people or something, since he's at home and he can take his time and do his job well, and
But do you
what
think
were you saying, Manny? Sorry. Manny was just going to say something.
Neil, I was going to ask if the point you made, or how the point you made relates to authenticity and the need to be authentic.
Because that's, if somebody's being authentic, that's a good point. The authenticity is something that you grow off. There's a reason why I think now, you look at, for example, if we bring it back to hip hop music, if you were to find a writer from the 90s that was ghost written for, like especially some of the bigger artists, they would be cancelled because it's not coming authentically. I know times have changed now in this generation. There's a lot more ghostwriting that's involved, but it comes from a place of, even if you're wrong, it doesn't matter, because as long as you speak authentically and you're trying to do something good. Do you know what I mean? And at the end of the day, with this, we're trying to do something positive and release it. In a way that, for example, we had a podcast a few weeks back talking about the Black Lives Matter and George Floyd and stuff, and me, Femi, and Dewan, it was all just so raw after seeing that video, and we had all these thoughts and ideas, and having that, transferring it into a medium that we could post and share, and then to build off of that, and it just, we all talked afterwards and goes, look, we just needed that. We needed to, because we felt useless, we felt helpless. A lot of the times when you're looking into some of these conspiracy theories, or you're looking into a lot of the stuff that's happening, you're feeling like a child that's been floating. You've got no control of anything. You're just stuck. So it's really good, I think, for our mental health as well, just to be able to create and release this information. And that's one of the reasons why we've done that as a separate episode. But for all 3 of us, I knew it was a good example. So I know I went away there from authenticity, but I think that's one of the reasons why we started it, and it's been brilliant ever since, I think.
I think what you said relates to authenticity, though, because you guys decided to start this podcast for very authentic reasons, wanting to leave, in a way, a print of your existence for your grandkids and generation and everybody else. So that works for me.
That is true, because as Neil said before, that obviously we started this just so that we can have something to say that, okay, we've not just lived our lives on this planet just doing a 9 to 5. We've been able to at least leave something of our legacy behind. Obviously you can, once we grow old and die and whatnot, our family will remember us, but obviously that's it. But we just thought, okay, we would like to leave something That
For the world.
yeah,
For the
exactly.
world.
Yeah.
Stop teaching
Brother
the world.
Ellis.
The way it does, you know,
Yeah.
like for example, talking about university, for example, there are a
Mhm.
lot of children out there have parents forcing kids to go to university and thinking that's the way forward. When
Mhm.
after you graduate, you're still struggling because you need certifications, you need
Mhm.
to find a job, you need some sort of experience.
They didn't tell you that at uni.
Exactly. Literally, that's why our first ever podcast called "What They Don't Tell You at University."
Exactly.
So that was one
Yeah.
of the rawest things that we all connected from, and obviously that was the origin story.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it had a very special meaning behind that because it was important to us to realize that it used to work for our parents' generation. I think a lot more, and it was a lot more. There's loads of reasons why this is the case, but times have changed. Like for example, there's a point now where in my parents' generation, especially in the Asian community, pharmacy, to become a pharmacist was a super important job to rely to keep the people going, to provide medicine. But that market has been saturated now. But there's still a lot of people in the Asian community that are still pushing their children to go into pharmacy when that market has been saturated massively. But I don't blame them. It's just they don't know any different. And
Yeah.
with technology now, it's sped up the process of everything. Everything has become quicker,
Yeah.
easier to handle and mention. And if people want to learn like producing music or producing something, like I've learned everything when it comes to playing guitar and DJing all via the internet. I've not had to pay anybody. I've just had to have an internet connection. And that opens
Exactly.
up a whole new world. If we'd say this to our grandparents' generation, they won't believe us. But technology is in such a way now that it's affecting every part of our lives.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
you've got to catch up with the times, but at the same time, I think I speak highly of technology and it's really, really useful. But there's also there's a dichotomy that I have between binging the stuff because a lot of the internet I think is not talked about enough, is extremely addictive. And I think over the next 10 years we're going to see this immersion. I think that it's happened in China and South Korea as it is, called like the internet or computer addiction, where we're constantly we've talked about this before with like pornography and stuff, where we're in an age where everything's at our fingertips. It's more about what you choose not to do because everything is available if you want to learn it. But there's a constant stimulation that's going on where people are beginning to live on the internet away from real life.
Yeah.
Whether we've had a friend who's I think Manny hasn't met, but first year, I think Femi and Ellis and the one who I'm talking about, who literally his online life was better than his outside realistic life. And with that, the problem is that when he came face to face with reality, it was too much for him to take. He'd rather go back and go, no, let me get back in my comfort zone, which again is not a bad thing. But what it means is that he's not prepared for the life that is available to us. And that makes a huge, huge difference. So as much as I'm a fan of technology, there's this, like anything in life, it's a balance. And I like how, sorry, I'm going on a bit, but like, for example, me, Femi and Juan, we don't really talk much. Like we're not constantly trying to post on our stories or do this or do that. But when we catch up, it's over. Or Manny and even Ellis, we catch up in person. It was
Brother Ellis.
we're constantly looking for the next chance to try and catch up. So obviously we
What
can't
up,
catch up in
people?
person now. So yeah, it's one of those things where we've tried to do what we can with the situation, and it's created just beautiful bonds between everybody.
Yeah, Neil, sorry. Femi, I know you're about to jump in, but I just want to add something to what Neil has said. For me, I've had the chance to learn about all sorts of random interests of mine on YouTube, and it's really incredible because in the past, before the internet, I wouldn't be able to watch a lecture from maybe Cambridge University, for example, or any other place on some random part of the world. But yet, without paying without paying tuition fees to the university, without having to travel to be in the same space as all those people, I'm able to connect with the ideas of somebody else somewhere. And YouTube is such a great learning space that I really try to make use of, especially as I don't always get the knowledge that I want from reading. I like to read, but I don't always get it because sometimes I don't understand some things I read. So I like to watch a lot of videos that explain all of the things I'm interested in. So I
Yeah.
definitely agree with what Neil said.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And to go again into something about how technology seems to have connected us, like the protest and the riots that's going on right now. If this was to if we can say we can go back to, I don't know, 50 years now from now, like in the past, because now technology exists and people have the chance to be able to share their experiences, like what obviously happened
Yeah.
with George Floyd. If that was
Yeah.
years back, there won't be anyone to be able to record it and share it on the internet for millions and millions of people to see.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that obviously that has happened, they were able to record the entire moment that incident happened and be able to post it, and many people were able to be able to watch it and have that emotional response, which has obviously resulted to what's going on now. Without technology being the medium that spreads the awareness out, stuff like this, revolutions and changes would not be able to happen as quickly. It would still happen, but it won't be able to happen as quickly. That's just my view on how I also think technology is sort of, affecting human lives basically.
I must say, guys, I think that the teenager of the next 10 years is going to be vastly different with
Definitely.
growing up in your early years with massive technology all around you, and then now social distancing is seeming to be like the new normal.
Yeah.
Because you see things really change. I mean, imagine you were 9 and your mom told you to keep away from people, keep 6 feet away from people, and this safer, because we don't know about this whole corona thing and when it's going to end really. But I'm just saying that when you grow up under that kind of atmosphere where people sort of, consciously and actively keep themselves away from others outside, like in open spaces and in other shared spaces, it sort of has an impact on the mind of a child, who is growing to see this as normal. Because for a child, 6 months is a long enough time for significant change in a child. So having a lockdown for 3 months, or having like social distancing rules in place and having masks and all these things in place for 6 months and upwards, so and then of course technology, and then with the protests and everything you guys are saying. So I think young people, teenagers and those, like early 20s and stuff like that, of the next 5, 7, 10 years are going to be vastly different. And we're going to be seeing a really, really different world. Now, talking about protests 50 years ago. So let's say 50 years ago was thereabouts of, I think the Million Man marches with Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and all that stuff of the time. And now we're having protests that seem to be taking a racial dimension again, even in the midst of technology, so it's not, it is quite something. You're having protests triggered in different countries of the world because of an incident that happened in one country, so, and it's even making governments to exchange words, like they're having spats between each other and things like that. So it tells you, yes, of course, of the impact of technology, but also it tells us that fundamentally we humans are the same. We're still human, regardless of the fact that we still display some of those very basic primal instincts that make us human, really. I mean, you would imagine that things like these wouldn't happen now, but they still happen in these times, and and you can see the response to it. So that's why I say that, in a sense, as much as we want to think technology may not be all for the best, we still have to be very grateful for it, for the opportunity. Because I mean, imagine the level of imagine the level of freedom. You're having these young people having to go out to protest. They aren't fully formed yet, in my opinion, but now they have an opportunity from a younger age to speak against great evils and feel really justified while doing it. Not that one supports any kind of destruction, but imagine what that voice that they feel that they have, fueled by the power of technology, is going to make them become. So what I'm just saying, guys, prepare. It's a massive change coming. And let me say that
it's already
with all the
here,
changes,
Ellis.
yeah, it's already
You know
here.
the George Floyd? You know the George Floyd, the person that captured that on video was a 17-year-old girl.
Really?
She was 17. So sorry to interrupt there, but that's the reason I wanted to mention. The generation is here. She was taught by her parents, this is unacceptable. If something, obviously in America, if you've got these situations, they're told, look, you've got to be able to stand up for a fellow man, or if you see injustice, film it. So we are told off, especially by the media. They're still trying to conquer and divide, where they're saying it's the BLM against the anti-BLM or this or that. We can all see that what he did on video is 100% wrong. So that's what I think is beautiful about this movement as well. It's coming from the authenticity is coming out, where people go, look, that's wrong. It's not. If this was 50 years ago, like you were saying, Ellis, this would be taken at the police report. Man had I forgot what they said exactly, but it was like it was an issue, and they had, and he passed away in the ambulance, so we can't do anything about it. Then the evidence came out, and that got people all, so regardless of race, regardless of color, they're all coming on one side. And again, it's been, I can't remember a time where it's not been united as one. Like I remember after the Brexit vote, what happened here, it divided the country. Regardless if you voted for or against it, it divided the country, and there was certain voices that were allowed to be heard, especially more from the racist side, which because it's more acceptable now. So this is the first time. Obviously, the corona's come in, and a lot of points that you've mentioned have been absolutely brilliant, and I agree with 100%. But it's allowed people for the first time I've ever seen to unite around one cause. Not against an idea that is corruption and injustice.
Yes,
I mean, and you're having even heads of departments in different countries having to resign. I mean, just to show their disapproval, or just to get out of the public eye, especially at this time.
But you say that as well, but I think the issue is it's going to take time for this sort of racism to be fully kicked out. What I mean by that is it happened again. So this another black guy in America was sleeping in his car, and this police officer goes to him and says, this is all recorded. I don't know who recorded. I think it's actually recorded from the police officer's camera who reported it at the time. And he basically goes to him and says, "No, you're in your car, you're sleeping, and I've got some sort of suspicion of you. Can I please do a check on you?" And the guy is just, he was asleep and he just woke him up, so he needs some time to rest, obviously to get his mind back onto his foot. But so he does a drunk test on him, sort of alcohol test, or some sort of test to find out how your mind is set. Are you aware of your surrounding? And he needs about a good half an hour, say, to get to that stage, because he's, like I say, he just woke up. So he gets tested and he fails as expected. And the guy is sort of confused. And because of all this situation with the George Floyd, he starts to get arrested. And 2 officers are on him, which, again, I don't know why he's not resisting. And then he sort of feels uncomfortable, the fact that these 2 officers are arresting him. And he probably gets a flashback of what happened with George Floyd and the situation with black people and these 2 white officers trying to arrest him and detain him for no evidence of what their suspicion is. So he tries to do an escape. They try to taser him. He tries to taser them back, and there's some sort of fight going on. And then, unfortunately, he gets tasered to death. Like, he gets literally tasered until he dies. Which is needless. And that happens again. And I'm thinking, well, we just had that situation. Why are you redoing this again? Why are you, killing another black fellow citizen for some suspicion that you have, which you don't have evidence for, which is the same reason why we got this protest going on. So I'm thinking, well, it seems like this is never going to end. It's going to happen again and again until this generation of this view that they have towards these agendas or these stereotypical people, that they have to delete it. And it's not going to take a week or 2 weeks or a month. It probably take years.
Yeah, but I have to say that, yes, a lot of, like, especially the older generation, I'll say the boomers, especially when they pass on, a lot of all of these views would be gone with them. I'm not saying that racism will finally kicked out, but with the response that I've seen, especially this time, across all lines, basically, I think that the changes, I mean, think about the changes that happened in the West after, you know, the killing of Martin Luther King and so on, you know, and Malcolm X and all that, you know, that followed the years after. A lot of changes have happened. I mean, even with rights of, you know, women and stuff like that. Imagine the changes that happened in the 70s, the 80s, and what we have now.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the rights of women, but it was just for a lot of the other minority / oppressed groups. And I think we've come a long way. And I think this, especially what's happening now and the kind of scrutiny, especially it has got on the media, things might change it with that same intensity, with that magnitude in the coming years, in the say next 10 years, 20 years. You know, it won't be perfect, but I think it will be a much better world. I mean, the world always has a way of correcting itself. You know, crazy things have happened in the 70s and people thought the world would, but then the 80s came, and then the roaring 90s with all the economic prosperity that happened in the Western world, in the United States and all that. So the world has always moved on. I think, you know, moving on, I think lots of things will be changed. I could see people pulling down statues and lots of other people not even blinking. Like, they're like, yes, probably these statues need to go. You know, so I'm not saying destroying public property is a good thing, but I'm just saying, like, normally, if anyone wanted to do stuff like that, you know what the response would be. But now, even some of the most hardcore people are just, you know, walking by like they don't see anything, because I mean, with what you see or what we saw on camera, and I mean, think of it, you had the Amy Cooper situation not long before the George Floyd one.
Yeah.
You know, so it was, I mean, you couldn't just, you know, you couldn't escape this one, right? So, it just felt like you needed to leave these people alone, you know? So I think changes in a certain sense. I know it seems kind of gloomy, generally speaking, but I just want to see like a glimmer of hope. And I think especially as the markets, you know, like the Dow Jones and all the major indexes, the S&P and the FTSE, the FTSE and so on, just like that, you know how it goes, it peaks and then it goes out. I think it's going to bounce up again. I think better days are coming, but it might just take a while.
It will take a while, because you can't bounce up so soon until America, I would say, goes back into the sort of eases the lockdown slightly, because it's quite difficult for them to, I think most shops are closed at the moment as well. Businesses aren't running. Today, in the UK, business have gone back on, but it's been a bit difficult. There's been this social distance of 2 meters.
To attract customers,
and that's 2 meters social distancing that they put on isn't really working. Apparently, in like most cities around the world, around England, especially Primark stores. All right, I'm not talking about Adidas or anything. I'm talking about Primark, which are usually cheap.
The basic.
The pride of Coventry.
Come on, man.
I'm kidding. But it is a big one.
Yeah, of course. Imposing right there at the city centre.
Come on, man. I live here, man. I live here. Come on.
You've been queuing since 5 a.m.
Well, Femi, is the Primark still there, as imposing as it is?
Yes.
People are queuing since 5 a.m.
Wow, really?
And the store was apparently supposed to open about 9, right? And they were queuing since 5 a.m. And then they had to actually, they got some news that there's been long queues going on outside. And they called their staff members to come in and open 7 instead of 9. That's how big the queues were.
Wow. But sorry to interrupt the one, but if they do that, right? Because if you notice in China, in Beijing, they're starting to have like lockdowns around the city because I think they've experienced some like a rise of in the case. Exactly. Yes. And for us, we've not come out of our first wave. The first wave haven't yet, and people are already acting like it's the virus doesn't exist. People aren't really even following the 2 meters rule. Okay, no one follows. Yeah. So
I saw the queues. There's got some pictures and they were reporting it. They're hugging each other.
Exactly.
And pushing each other out of the way. Like, yeah, I need my trains right now. My £10.
I don't know. The time when everything was spiked back up, I feel like it's gonna be worse than the first time, because now people are acting people are acting like the virus is already gone and done, and now people are clustering together a lot more than before, which is a bit strange. Although they've imposed the 2 meters rules and all that, people a lot more. They're getting much closer than before. So if that breakout does happen, it will be bad.
I don't want to cause any controversy though, but for those who asked the question, why is it that we've had these protests in the United States and everywhere else in the world, and there hasn't been any major breakouts of coronavirus? Now, some people say we have to wait for 14 days, right? So we're still waiting. Right,
I know they've been like freaking, they're like conspiracy theories that says it's a hoax, that it's a hoax, that it's not real, so that's what people are now waiting for, that okay, if it is as real as they say, then
we should expect a breakout in all the cities that there were protests.
Should be a breakout. If there is no breakout, then we know that we've just been played by the government. And if there is a breakout, then we'll be like, okay, this virus is actually real. So I think that's what everyone is just like waiting for, because even for me, I don't really trust it, but we'll just have to to wait and
see.
Exactly. Wow. Well, yeah, but anyway, I want to just ask, like, because obviously I know that the lockdown and stuff is over there in Canada, but how are the people there? Like, in comparison to the UK, like, how are the people? Because
I must say, the general impression that the rest of the world tends to have about Canada as being very welcoming and all of that is true. Yeah, I must say, yes, it's true relative to other parts of the world. Won't mention names, but the thing is, it still kind of feels like the UK and the US at the same time. I don't know. I guess the institutions are still sort of structured in the British way. Whatever, like the government institutions and departments and things like that. But then people, like regular social culture, like out here, is heavily influenced by the United States. And of course, the economy as well is dependent on its relationship with the United States. So, what you get here is basically a lot from the United States, I guess, like when you buy stuff online and you do, just businesses or whatever, somehow you kind of have to have that contact with the United States somehow, in the business sense. So it's really tied to the US here, but I guess that whole thing, the whole Anglo, Commonwealth type thing, between all these countries still, because out here it's, the flag on the flag of Ontario, which is a province in which I live, has the Union Jack. So yeah, so you kind of feel at home. So I always sort of tell people who are in the UK to visit Canada or just, come around. You're always welcome and you're gonna feel at home. Yeah.
Be a lot more welcoming.
Yeah, and the roads are bigger,
Oh,
So yeah, just had to mention.
so you ain't gonna get congestion, man.
No, it was a whole lot bigger, and distances are, wide and far apart too. So.
So you definitely must need a car or enter a bus when going somewhere then, like.
Yeah, I mean, if you live around the city center, then, or like the downtown, like they call it down here, you really, you could do without a car. But if you say you get a job somewhere else and you really like the job, but you don't want to move close to it, then you will definitely, because you don't want to wait for. I mean, here in Ottawa, there's an old train that works. Actually, there's 2 lines of it, and I know down in Toronto they have their own metro system. But for sort of time sensitive jobs and other type jobs, you want to have a car just to. So but it's calm out here. It's calm, really calm.
That's good to hear, man. That's good to hear. Emmanuel, I see you've been very quiet. Like what? I've not heard his voice.
Yes, bro.
Say something, man. Say something.
True. Well, what can I say? We're in the middle of a revolution, hopefully, with social media. Going back to all that we've talked about, and I really like the fact that a lot of people are becoming more educated on the experiences of Black people as well as other ethnic minorities.
Emmanuel, just to on what you're saying, and you're going to respond to this now on social, because you talked about social media, right? On social media, there was a Blackout Tuesday, right? Remember, so when everyone had their screens to black. I want to ask you, what do you think about such campaigns on social media? What is their reach, especially to the ordinary person? I just want to get your thoughts on this. What is their reach? Because at the end of the day, if you, as a Black person, you say you experience a racist act towards you, it happened somewhere on the corner of the street. It happened somewhere at the locker room at your workplace or at some random place. It's not like it's pre-planned. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's if you say, you have stuff like that, right?
Right.
So I'm just like, with the blackouts, on social media, what is the real impact? Is that just for people who are on social media? Does it go out? That person who you think carried out a racist act towards you probably doesn't use Instagram, or he doesn't use Facebook the way you do, and he doesn't know that there was a thing like a Blackout Tuesday. So how is he supposed to get educated on that? So that's why sometimes I am concerned sometimes about some of these online campaigns, but sometimes it also feels like if you don't take part, then you are not being sensitive enough, because maybe you feel like people expect you to support a cause. You need to be seen to be supporting a cause. So if you have a fan base, you want to maintain them by supporting causes that they would expect you to, even though in your own or by yourself, you have questions about the efficacy of such campaigns.
Gotta let Manny answer.
Emmanuel, you're asking me the question.
Bro, I definitely agree with the point about the limitations of social media. There are definitely many people who will not get the chance to learn about all of the ideas that are being passed about and get educated about experiences of Black people. But we also have to acknowledge that social media has a very wide base. So there are several millions of people on there who can get educated regardless. And I think it's important that with whatever medium that we have access to, we should try our best to use it to reach the people that we can, because I think one thing that I have learned from this coronavirus breakout is that we're all interlinked, both directly and indirectly. So if several people are being reached on social media, several millions and billions of others are being reached indirectly as well. So I take that as an advantage of that from these movements. It does not mean that it doesn't turn into a spectacle at some point. It does not mean that it doesn't get hijacked by companies and people who want to make money.
PR people.
Yeah, those things happen, but they're like the side effects of any good cause we can think about. Even with protests, when people go out, there will be people who will use the opportunity to
sell their wares.
Yes, exactly. Their own selfish advances and all that.
Agendas.
But I think it's important to focus on the potential of all of these acts and everything, man.
Yeah, but in the sense that at least the awareness that there was a campaign that people needed to just be off social media for a while. I think that is something though, because it starts from the heart, right? And it's the little things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I saw a lot of people respond. I just woke up it was on a Tuesday. I woke up and I saw color black everywhere on my Instagram.
Yeah.
In a way, it seemed like everyone on my Instagram had uploaded it. People that were white, black, old, young, because I have some old followers as well. And I was just, I found it very interesting. Yeah.
That's how they kept abreast with current trends.
I mean, I immediately thought about the fact that this could be a spectacle that is very popular in the moment and could fade away. But I also saw it as an opportunity to put out a positive message. Just put it out there and see, just in case it reaches anybody, like we're doing with this podcast. So with me, I uploaded the image and I used the caption with social media to write down my feelings on what was going on. So for me, that was a productive exercise because I imagine that people would have read it, and whether or not they remember it is not up to me.
Yeah, because I remember, I must say, or if I remember correctly, your write-up was quite elaborate, and that's why probably I remembered and thought to ask you this question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I actually have. I actually sent you a song, Ellis, something earlier on. Have you heard RTJ4 or Run the Jewels 4? Because there's something that we're just talking about over the last half an hour. I just thought of it in the back of my mind. I was like, oh, there's a verse from Killer Mike on one of the songs that I was like, this is literally what we're talking about at the moment. If you guys want to hear it, it's so good. It's literally.
Neil, talking about music, I said, I don't know if because I sent you a message. I didn't want to say this, but I sent you a message. I said, how about musical breaks? Because we're supposed to have interludes here, bro.
Nah, man, not with this format. Why would we interrupt this flow?
I know, man.
No. I'm just saying that at least for people who are listening, you don't want to listen to people just jabber on about stuff.
That's what podcasts are about.
Take a break from your talking.
Otherwise, they listen to mixtapes.
What do you want me to think?
Listen to mixtapes. Now, I get what you mean, and potentially it could be something on this. But I'm seeing for the long run, maybe it's something.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, what do you guys have to say about what I just said? Like music, right? Like, or interludes, breaks, or whatever.
I get the need for it. Sorry, I know I'm not the one offending, but I get the need for it. I get the need for it, but personally, if I tuned into a podcast with any caption that I was interested in, I would be more interested in listening to what people have to say, and I would actually skip the breaks. And I think I may forget what was being talked about before the break came on. So just like what we were saying earlier, it can be both positive and negative, which makes it
yeah. I get what you mean though.
Because it could be like the breaks could seem some sort of like You know when you're watching a YouTube video and an ad comes up and you're like, oh man, this ad, I need to skip this ad.
And it's an unskippable one. You're like, oh my god.
Think about like you have an Audible subscription and you're listening to an audiobook and then it's like a musical interlude or something.
Dude, that's a horrible example. They never have musical interludes.
You just take off them and throw it away. Oh gosh. Duan, what do you think? I see that you're on mute. Are you there, Duan?
Yeah, I'm here, mate. I'm here. I'm listening to what you're saying.
Yeah.
These little bites and stuff is good and breaks. I get what you're saying in terms of maybe adverts, but I think the podcast is a good thing to express our feelings. Like, for example, when we did our Blackout Friday, Blackout conversation and podcast, we expressed our feelings and emotions, and Neil touched on it earlier as well, that we get to feel like we're doing something. That's the thing. You don't want to just let everything happen, and you've got all these emotions inside of you, and you want to express it, and you want to touch on people to do something about it as well. Like, for example, there's these stupid idiots, they call them idiots, right? No, I'm being serious, right? They go out. This is a serious thing, actually. That there's people there who have caught the virus, and they're literally coughing, okay, on handles, on bus, on seats, to get someone else to catch it and spread the virus.
Wow.
Why are you doing this? Like, why? What is your purpose? If you want to suicide yourself, go ahead. Anyone else's life doing it. So I like to express these. I have to say that out loud.
We can't. Dawn, we can't have a podcast where you say to people, kill themselves.
No, I don't want anyone to hurt yourself. People out there who would actually say, oh, yeah, let me do that now. But what I'm trying to say is stop trying to affect people's life in the negative way possible.
The moral of the podcast: don't kill yourself.
I know, kill yourself.
I appreciate. I know where you're coming from, and I'm just twisting your words. I know.
Please don't kill yourself.
The one, for real, man. I feel like I'd ask for some censorship, but I feel you, man. You really needed to let that one out, because if you think of it, it's just totally nuts. Like for anyone to do stuff like that, right? Like, why would you do that?
Yeah, why would you? I mean, like, what? Not even just that. I mean, there's these, for example, the protest that was going on. There's these people called I think they're called, what they're called, the EDL?
EDL, English Defense League.
Yeah. These demonstrators who are literally, I call them Nazis. Because they're literally Nazis. They're racist people who are trying to attack a peaceful protest. I mean, these people are protesting because of all this hate that they've had for over 100 years. And then they're going out there like, come on, I'm going to fuck you up. Like, why are you doing that? Like, let the protest happen. The police, because what the situation was apparently was that Winston Churchill, who had a racist view, but he's a strong figure for England, and obviously during his darkest hours, they call it. But there's protests that they want the statue to be removed peacefully and put into a museum. I get that. And then these people, and there's already a line of police officers who are there to prevent any sort of protesters attacking it, which is fine. But then these EDL guys decide to come out and start riots and fights, and just not just fight those protesters, but also fight their own police officers who are just standing there.
And themselves. And themselves.
That themselves as well. Apparently, two brothers were fighting each other.
I know.
Makes no sense.
Why?
It's coming from a space of ignorance. That's all it is. And at the end of the day, I love how lots of people didn't get involved in that. But yeah, I definitely get what you were saying. You just look at it, you just go, what? But it's very obvious what they're doing. and what it is. So with video cameras now,
Yeah.
it is funny how also I love how the media likes to call them right wingers or EDL or all these kind of things. If
Right.
this was taken in another context, if this was, for example, something that was happening in the Middle East, this would be Muslim does this.
Yeah.
When obviously it's like it's a faction of these people, the people that are obviously the fanatics, as you would call them, that are obviously defending an ideology which is boarded up. It's not there. It's not there anymore. The police are already doing the job. The people that were gonna turn up didn't turn up. So what the hell are you doing there? Because you obviously, and then you start fights with the police. So that shows you, all in all, enough about the regime that they're what they're trying to say, basically. And it's funny how people are being reported on is they're anti-Black Lives Matter. If you've seen, a lot of them are anti-Black Lives Matter, but it's not. They're blatantly. They're just looking for an opportunity to go and cause a fight.
Exactly.
And the thing is, the thing is, this yobbish mentality is something that we've called out on this podcast as well, especially with England, where we're known as one of the worst tourists everywhere. Not because of our because day to day an Englishman's quite nice. There's a certain repressiveness that happens, and I've realised after going to Japan and stuff like that, that culture is in like Japanese culture and other cultures where you all tend to be, and Scandinavia to a certain extent, where that innocent, that reservedness, when they have alcohol added to that, adds a level of, well, we can do what we want now. This is acceptable behaviour because we've been let loose, and so this is essentially. Some of this behavior that's coming out is part of that, and I just think I think it's stupid. We've all said on the podcast before that we don't drink, and a lot of this behavior is when you drink, you let loose of your inhibitions, and you are actually who you really are. So a lot of this repressiveness, especially now, is people think they should do the right thing, and in my opinion, people should, as long as it's I've encountered a lot of people that have said things, and probably you guys as well, that have not been inherently racist, but you feel it, you go, man, you're a racist, but I can't call you out on that. Like there's instances when I've got in London, when I've got on a bus or I've got on a train in London, and a woman has looked at me or a man has looked at me, and then bearing in mind I've just come from work, so short, like it was just trousers and a shirt on with a normal bag, and they looked at me and they just walked to the other side of the carriage. Now, again, this is very different from discrimination that our parents faced, and it's completely different. But at the same time, there's a denominator of that. But I think, especially with what's happening now, they see it as, it's so funny because everybody is all on one side, as you guys were saying. Everybody is on one side, but there's always some people that are just there to take advantage of that and push their agenda.
Yeah.
Which was, oh no, we're here to defend Churchill. Which was, if they said, look, we don't like black guys, it's politically incorrect to say that, but what they feel is they should be honest. And if they say we don't like black people, there's a potential they're going to be here, and the people that support black people, we want to beat them up. They can't say that. So therefore they say we're here to defend a statue that is already boarded up and called by police.
Yeah.
Where's the logic in this one? If they're just honest with it, I'd rather just say fair enough, and I'd clap you and applaud you, because at least you're being authentic, isn't it, Manny?
Yeah.
You're bringing me into this.
That's actually very true, because it's so funny.
It makes sense though.
Because it's so funny because the police were there to protect the statue. Like, police were actually there to protect the statue from being, toppled down violently, and they obviously, the EDL come in there saying, okay, we want to protect the statue, while at the same time fighting the people that are actually protecting the statue.
Exactly.
It doesn't, of course, I know it doesn't make sense. And obviously I don't want to go too deep or too off topic, but when they obviously say systematic racism because of all this, it's obviously it's getting a bit too heavy. Should I go this way?
No, Femi, go for it. We're all in the mood. Go for it.
Oh, okay. So when they obviously say like systematic racism and this discrete racism that exists within the UK especially, because there is this thing. Obviously, we know of the knife crimes and stuff that's happening. That's happening in London with black kids, black boys stabbing each other and everything. The thing is that it didn't start in London. the stabbing and everything initially, the knife culture initially started in Scotland, and it was between between like white kids, white boys, and stuff, and they just they killed each other over there. But the thing is, they implemented a method that worked, and they found a method that they used to stop that crime from happening. And it obviously moved over to Manchester, and they managed to quench it as well. But when it came to London, and obviously this is where I now bring race into it, when it came to London and it's partying with black boys, the method that they used to stop knife crime violence in Scotland and Manchester and all these other places around the UK, we now intending to use the opposite method, which is that, if you kill each other, we're taking you and throwing you in prison. Instead of putting the method of, we're gonna watch, we're gonna teach people to be active bystanders. So if you see something going on, you try and interfere to break up the fight. You try and we train the parents to kind of teach their kids how to behave and stuff like that, because those are what they implemented in places like Scotland and all the other places that has these crimes. And they didn't do that in London. They just ignored it, and they now somehow labeled knife crime with black kids. So if you mention knife crime, you instantly think, it's black boys that that do it. This ain't black. It's not black. It's not a race thing. It's just obviously misunderstood teenagers who come from a troubled home and don't have any role models. So they need guidance. They've taken that and then said, okay, knife crime belongs to black kids. Like how they would be like, if you see an Asian person with a bag, he's a terrorist. If you see they did that, and that's literally the form of systematic racism, discrete racism that obviously to your face, and someone will call you the N-word and say, you this, you that. Nah, they won't do that. But that's the system of racism that goes on in this country that I feel that is a bit, that is not spoken about. The country is not like racist in your face racist. No, it's just underhandedly racist.
I understand sarcasm, which unfortunately places like America don't actually, and just
true. And Canada as well.
Canada.
Wow.
There you go. But what I want to say is when they did I think it was Anonymous did a leak that Princess Diana. Okay, this is her own. She was at the time married and obviously and had these two children, and at the time she was dating.
Is it Dodi Baye or something? I can't remember his name.
What was his name?
Is it Dodi Baye or is it I can't remember his name as well.
What's the name? But because that gentleman was sort of a different ethnic minority, let's say. I don't want to be specific. Outside of the white culture that they're used to, it displeased the family. All right, many ways that apparently that this is a better reminder. Take this with a pinch of salt, but this is the leak that Anonymous has announced that the family went ahead and caused this crash to happen, prevent any destroyment of their
bloodline or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So they were in hand of her death, basically.
Yeah. There were rumors that they said that she was pregnant from her boyfriend at that time. Hence why they decided to obviously bump her off, as they say, as you guys were saying. I don't, obviously that's cruel, but I don't want to say that, but that's literally that's the rumors that's
and also you've seen something happen recently as well with Meghan Markle being brought into the family, and then all of a sudden them two are leaving their position as well.
I know.
So guess where they've moved to, Ellis? They've come to join you in Canada.
I know.
Everybody's coming to Canada, man. That's gonna be the name of the episode. Everybody's gonna come Canada. But yeah, something that I'm gonna bring up as well, just back to what you were saying, Femi. Have you heard of a guy called Akala?
Yeah, I've heard.
Of course.
Have you watched his interview on Good Morning about the knife crime?
Yeah, I watched it as well. Yeah.
Again, I've actually got his book I need to read. I've got it's called, I think it's released. It's called Natives, Race and Class for the Ruins of Empire. It's I've got that ready to go as well. But yeah, his points he brings up is brilliant in it. Where when in that interview where I think you mentioned a couple of things, a good point that he mentioned. He talked to Piers Morgan. He goes, "You'll never be you'll never be asked to say because why, as a white middle-aged man, why to apologize for all white men to be pedophiles, even though predominantly a lot of the pedophile cases are men aged between middle-aged." He goes, that'd be preposterous. Why is it the same thing for black people? He goes, and he also makes a good point. He goes, there is a point to do with classism, to do with the cuts of funding, cuts of police officers, and he goes, more police officers in the street doesn't do anything. But he just makes loads of brilliant points, which I think people are starting to listen to more and more. Like these people that have, again, people like Akala have got their own platform. I managed to actually go see him live as well. When was it? About in October time. Incredible. Like I tell you what. But I definitely need to get on his book soon, because I just thought of that because Femi, a lot of points you make, and I was like, oh, it sounds like he's watched the Akala interview. I was like, that's awesome. And yeah, his music is amazing. To bring it back, the point I was gonna read originally, it was from Killer Mike off Run the Jewels. So again, Femi, it's a quick album, but I think you'll really like it. Like this is literally the writing in it. Ellis is like poetry from the 90s in our hip hop. I absolutely love it. So it's like the way I see it, you're probably free from ages 1 to 4. The ages at 5, you're shipped away for your body to be stored. They promise you education and they give you tests and scores. As they predicted prison populations by who's scoring the lowest. As the usually I can't even say it, but he raps it. My God. And usually the lowest scores for the poorest are people who look like me. And every day in the evening news, they feared your fear for free, so that you're so numb that you watch the cops choke out a man like me until my voice goes from a shriek to a whisper, I can't breathe. Now, bearing in mind, this was written in 2019, and that's still relevant to this day.
Neil?
And that album has just been announced.
How prophetic.
Neil,
Wow.
what's the name of the track?
It's called Walking in the Snow. And then even after that, it goes, and then you sit there in your house and couch and watch it on TV. The most you give is a Twitter rant and call it tragedy. But truly, the travesty is you've been robbed of your empathy and replace it with apathy. I wish you could magically fast forward to the future so that you can face it. You can face it and see how fucked up it will be. I promised I'm honest. And it goes on, but I was like, bloody, I remember listening. It's 11 tracks of that. So Killer Mike, and LP from Company Flow, Ellis, but he's honestly come into his. So they've collapsed. So it's Killer Mike from Old School Rapper and LP. They've come together to form Run the Jewels, and they put this album out. And honestly, it's if you want to listen to an album of the times we're currently going through, whether it's the political message, where it's talking about, like, even from last year, they were talking about there's a man that looks like me that's a black guy, and then I'm trying to say something and they choke me out until I say I can't breathe. They kill. It's amazing. But yeah, and they've released it for free as well. So I'd recommend that everybody goes and checks out Run the Jewels and Run the Jewels 4, because it's honestly, it's such a strong project. The last 3 have been amazing as well, but they really turn it up for this album. And yeah, just that, I remember hearing that verse and just sitting there thinking, damn, this is, even though it was written last year, it's still relevant to this day. And it's something that I thought about as well when you were talking about as things have changed. Yes, they have, but in the same way, Martin Luther King's speech is still as relevant. It's still relevant to this day as it was in the 60s. So so there's a reason why people keep going back to him and Malcolm X. It's not like they're saying, oh, for the time it was good. No, even now, there's a certain degree of this that still resonates through our entire system. And it's something that I think I mentioned on the podcast where we talked about the Black Lives Matter thing, but they were saying that Martin Luther King was killed because he did his bit, quote unquote, and then all that's taught in schools is that he was assassinated. Like I was taught in school that he was just assassinated. Yeah. They weren't told why or where or how. It's just, and same with Gandhi, and then he was just assassinated. With Martin Luther King, he was assassinated going, hang on, if I'm free and we're still in a phase of, and the white bloke across me is still struggling. How can we be equal? Because we're still struggling from a class system. So he was organizing a lower class, so universal basic income, for a way for all people to unite in one way and to protest on the streets and to say, look, we demand we have a certain level of lifestyle to be treated equally. And that's where he was assassinated. So I think that point is again overlooked massively in society, and even the education system that we grew in. I had to learn this during university, researching like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and what they actually stood for and what they were saying. And again, if they weren't around at the time and there wasn't any videos of them speaking, we wouldn't have the education that we have today, because it would have been perceived completely differently.
Yeah.
That is very that's very, very true. And can you guys imagine, let's say, if Martin Luther King was alive in today's day and age? Can you sort of guess what his view would be on today's society? And like, can you, if you can just like give a point as to how what you might say?
Like what I would think would be, he would be the one starting the movement, and he would probably try and say, look, we've had enough, and because his belief with ideology was behind violence, that and the fact that he was a Muslim, and the fact that he had this sort of empowerment to say what you need to do. Sorry,
I said that's Malcolm X.
Yeah, Malcolm X. Is that what the question was behind? Or sorry, or
no, I was asking about Martin Luther King. Like if he was,
sorry.
if he was.
I got confused with the two. Okay, with Martin Luther King, it will be a bit different. Obviously, it won't be with violence or anything. It will be more about, he will be showing his presence and saying we need to march on the streets, and we won't stop until this this law has changed. We're not going to change. We're not going to stop until then. And that was his philosophy at the time. Until he got assassinated, that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to push and push and push until his last breath. But unfortunately, when he did get assassinated, what did the person in power do at the time? Let's just move on. Yeah, we're very sorry. We'll do a funeral and then we'll forget about it and continue killing us black people as we are still doing today. I mean, that's how it unfortunately ended. If someone in power, like right now, okay, let's use DT guy, who's unfortunately feeling like he's. I don't know if you guys saw the news. He couldn't walk properly. I don't know if he's got corona or some sort of situation being problematic. But anyway, with him in power, when people were marching on the streets, what did he say? Because he doesn't have any hidden FBI to do the job or anything like that. What did he do? He said, just shoot the protest. That's what he said. To go and shoot the protests. So the time has changed. That we had I think, I can't remember who was in power at the time. It wasn't John F. Kennedy. It was someone else when Martin Luther King was sort of the face of these demonstrators at the time. And what that president did at the time was just, like I said, just leave. That's the problem. And I don't know if we did have Martin Luther King, I don't think we need someone to start the movement. We've got the movement. We have this march going on, but nothing's happening. No one's listening. That's where the issue.
And that's why people were just crazed and fed up. And even the majority of people, and you don't believe in a system that much. That's why people were like, Killer Mike's got a song like that. He goes, start again. He goes, burn the system to the ground. Because a lot of the people were just like, we're going to, but once he did have this bit where he goes, they were in Alabama, they were talking where he spoke, and he goes, but if you do burn your house to the ground, what are you going to do then? If you burn your own house and you set your own house on fire, are you going to grow from the ashes?
Can I say something here? Now, talking about these kids, especially the ones protesting, right?
Yeah.
I also get the sense that there's a segment of the protesting crowd out there that are doing it out of, like frustration with themselves. So, there is that, like you say, the burn the whole house down mentality really strong in them. And they want to do that not because it's all about the social change that is required, but because they just feel fed up with everything. Like maybe things are not working out, maybe as a result of what the economy is saying at the moment or whatever. But then they're just taking out those frustrations and from their own personal lives and stuff like that. I think, yeah, I mean, you get the sense because, yeah, I know, yes, it's what has happened is very callous and heinous, what we saw. But I'm not very comfortable with the idea that people, because still you go to loot stores, but some of these stores are also owned by people who share your sympathies and who don't like what happened to George Floyd. But then you're still going ahead to rob the store, all in the name of protest. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
but there's people that take it as an excuse. So they've always wanted to rob the store. Now, we never will know the full numbers. There are always going to be, the majority of people have been protesting and filming. So all the bad stuff that the police has been happening is all been filmed and it's all coming out more than what it was before in 1969, for example.
Yeah, but
saying that, there's always going to be these people that opportunists is the word I'm looking for. They've wanted to rob the stores anyway, but now they've got an excuse and they're going to use the movement as that. But I think the majority of people can see that that is an issue. That there has been all sorts that has happened, but at the same time, you can see, and there's a video of a black police officer in I want to say Alabama again. I can't remember where. I think Arizona, and he's telling the guys, I am in support of you, but I have to A, do my job, and B, you've got to help me point out them guys, and I'm 100% you for protesting. But the issue is, it's so Americans quite authoritarian in that aspect, where you do what I want, and I think the people know the truth. The people can see that 8 minute and 46 video, and it's polarized everything. Dave Chappelle did a thing on it. Every other show is doing stuff on this and they're getting black people's experience and voices heard. So something like the first time, and people that never usually raise their voice and stay apolitical and stay out of everything are still saying on this day, right, this isn't acceptable. So again, the way it's polarized people, that there are certain people that are trying to push against the narratives, the TV companies that are trying to, there's the left wings, without trying to stereotype, the left wings that are trying to say they're it's anti-Black Lives Matter, the people are doing this. The right wing are going this, that, and the other. There's all sorts of crap, but majority of people are seeing the truth for what it is. And I think that's the beautiful thing. They're not relying on the media to cut up that segment and play it or not play it.
No,
so seeing that in whole, and like for example, Dave Chappelle bit was phenomenal. Like people really care what he says.
Yeah.
But he said it in his own speech. He went, why the fuck do you care what I think? It's because you know that I'm going to be honest. And that's what we're trying to do with this. Again, coming back to the authenticity thing. We don't know if we're going to be 100% true, but at least we're honest and we're doing it in a way that's coming across real. We don't know some of the facts, and we will be 100% with that. But we're doing it honestly, and I think that's what we're doing at the moment.
Yeah, that's true. And obviously, because when I watched the Dave Chappelle, the 846 Dave Chappelle show, it said something that really actually made me think, because you've got this lady called Candace Owen. Have any of you heard of Candace Owen? Yeah, so she's obviously more right wing, and you've got right wing, you've got left wing. Both of them are parties to their own ideology and stuff like that. So obviously, what she was saying is that that why are we putting George Floyd as a hero, and when Dave Chappelle was like, actually, she's the one putting him as a hero. No one, everyone else isn't putting him as a hero. People just saw that there is a man on the floor, regardless of the crimes that he has committed, regardless of what he has done. There's a man on the floor begging for his life, crying for his mother, not even his dead mother, and there's someone kneeling on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, and that man died. And you're telling me that he can die anyway. he deserved to die anyway because he was a criminal in his past. It was this and that. It was this and that. Would for me when he said that, I was like,
I mean, did she insinuate that? Did she insinuate that?
I watched the video. I've watched her talking about it as well. Like, I went to actually watch the video. She sort of did, because what she was doing is that she was bringing up all the stuff that he has done in his past. When they say character assassination, no, I'm not even saying that. Even if he has committed crimes or atrocities or whatnot, that's him. But what's basic here, what everyone could see here, is that
that law enforcement, for that matter.
Someone that's supposed to protect you from the one literally executing you. You can imagine yourself on the floor there. You can imagine your kids on the floor there, literally begging for their life. So that's what the point I was trying to make here is that for the people on the right that are saying that he deserves it anyway, that he's a criminal anyway, and for the people that are obviously on the left are doing their own stuff, the point I'm trying to make is that we as humans could learn how to make a distinction that separate both things. We know that, okay, he might not have been the cleanest of person in his past or in his life, but make a distinction that a human life is not worth to be taken away by another human. That it's not worth that, as long as
especially without the conviction, without courts of law and all that.
Exactly. I think you make a good point, Femi. I think another thing as well is that there's always been these. Gandhi was, Nelson Mandela was, Martin Luther King was as well. They've said, oh well, he cheated. They always bring up something. Oh well, he cheated on his wife. He does this, he does that, to try and as a character assassination. What it is that I don't actually have any hate towards her. What the issue is that she's been paid by a company who has said you have to espouse these views, and because you're black and because you're a woman, you can reach out to audiences because you will be looked at as this person that I can trust. It does remind me of, Django Unchained, where Samuel Jackson's character would be, I'm on the side of the white man. You are not. That's essentially what she's doing. And again, you don't feel sorry for Samuel Jackson when he gets shot, but at the same time, he knows what he's getting in for.
Yeah.
He's been paid by these people, and he has to get out of that system. So he has to think, in order to get out of the system, I have to shut down them people that came from where I came from. And that's all she's doing. And so I don't actually have any disdain towards her, because she doesn't. I don't know if she believes his views. I don't know, but I know that she's being paid by other people to expose these views, because you can't watch a 9-minute video of a guy being murdered, like as you were saying, and go,
he that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, you really don't have to play politics with everything. This is just common sense and common humanity. Exactly. You see someone dying, politics has no place in this. Exactly. And you're right, because I know a couple of people, in the past she's been accused of being paid or being a shill or being, stuff like that. So I know, I guess she's working with some people, because I don't know. I'm not sure these things that you guys have mentioned make any sense.
Mm-hmm. But the funny thing is, this Candace is apparently, I don't know if someone in the White House said, she should run for president. I mean, hang on a second. Are you telling me this woman who has no common sense, who were thinking of trying to remove Donald Trump, but you're trying to bring someone even 10 times worse, who can't even speak for her own community? At least Donald Trump can speak in behalf of his business. He can't speak in behalf of her own people. So the thing about America is quite a mess over there, unfortunately. The people in power are trying to bring these sort of situations, worsen it, rather than trying to rectify it. I mean, we shouldn't really be complaining about racism. We're in
2020.
Say that, Dewan. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
just you compete with your point, but it's the same problem in the UK as well. I'm not saying the UK is not guilty. We know firsthand they're not as bad as the US, but we've got still a lot of them same problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do have those problems, and then apparently, I read on news someone, a black person, got killed by a police officer with a taser and they thought he had a weapon on him, and it was only his mobile phone. And these things have happened in the UK many times where I've been in a group of black people as well, and I've never been searched by police, right?
Yeah, racial profiling was big back then.
Yeah, I haven't been searched by police, and during those days they had stop and search, like any black person they saw wearing a hoodie, anything like that, you were stopped and searched. I wasn't stopped and searched when I was within that group. Only 3 or 4 friends of mine were, and I was like, I asked the police officer, "What happened? What have you found?" No, nothing. We just need to do a normal stop and search. This is just part of our process. And these were just white guys. They didn't. I've never seen black police officers here. I've lived in UK since I was born. I don't know if you guys seen it. I haven't seen anything like that.
That's true.
But there are apparently a lot more multiculturalism in the police force than America. But then saying that, those 4 police officers, as part of the George Floyd, 2 of them were Asian.
Yeah, that was the problem as well.
Yeah, it's a systemic problem, as you guys were saying.
It is.
But I don't think it's just the color. I think what it is the media who portray these stereotype into our minds, not just one person, everyone's mind.
Anyway,
just like Femi was saying that as soon as you see a knife crime, your mind goes straight to there's a black person involved.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's a bombing. There's a Muslim involved. You know what I mean? It's weird. Like, you never think of a Jewish person in any crime. Have you ever thought of that? Yeah. I'm not trying to headline here, but
the Jewish community have got enough. They've got enough problems. I mean, in themselves, as in like they get anti-Semitism is on the rise as well. And I think after Brexit, it's just everybody that's not who we perceive to be good. So I know what you're saying. I don't agree entirely with what you're saying, Duan, but I know what you mean. Anti-Semitism is definitely on the rise in the West as well. Yeah, and these people that are just going after them because they're Jewish and they have no idea that these people are not. There is obviously there's rich Jewish people, of course, and that's fine. But there's a whole reason why that is as well. There's a video by I think Philosophy Tube that's done a video on it, and it's really really interesting about how like in the 40s and stuff there was Jewish people were considered lower class citizens and they were outcasted, and they couldn't do normal jobs, so they could only do certain other jobs in banking and stuff. So that's where their families have gone into. But it's only a small percentage of that. Most Jewish people are just like normal people. And again, something that we've got going for this podcast, there'll be somebody that watches this, I don't know who will be, but they'll have never seen a brown guy, a white, a Middle Eastern guy, and a black guy together. Because in the media, from the media's perspective, we're all enemies. We're all fighting each other. We're all this. We're all that. And then just the fact that we're doing this, and then we just see a lot of the racism and stuff comes from if you don't know somebody. If you don't know anybody like you, you can't empathize with them. If you see somebody and there's all this bullshit about multiculturalism doesn't work, and you're like, just what have you experienced multiculturalism? Oh, I read in a paper that Islam is blah blah blah. Yeah, okay. But if you go and experience it and see that these people are just like you, and the more you try and inwards, and a lot of it does come from the British Empire. Let's not forget that we went and conquered the great in Great Britain is inherently attached to the fact that it went and conquered other brown and black folk and all these other countries.
Yes, preach.
It's attached to that, exactly. So the reason why we're called Great Britain is part of that. So it's these people had democracies and cultures and other ways of doing stuff, but because they weren't a different color, they were outcast. And there's lots of stories. I remember it from reading in a Carlos speech as well, and I'll keep going back to him. But I love that dude. And he was saying how from the Caribbean, England was perceived to have gold streets, to literally because of the wealth that was here. Then a lot of Caribbean people would come over during the Commonwealth, just like my grandparents did, and they'd go, and they were disappointed. They were so ashamed because, again, there was no exposure to it. They just heard the stories.
Yeah.
They came over, they saw the poverty, and they saw this, and a lot of them were too embarrassed to go back.
Exactly.
So a lot of them stayed in the country and helped work and build the economy. And there's all sorts of other stuff where it's like, there's all sorts of other stuff that when we talk about immigrant, the whole phrase of an immigrant is people that look like us. Are they talking about Germans? Are they talking about, okay, let's take it outside of Europe. Are they talking about white New Zealanders? Are they talking about Australians? No. So it's the whole concept of what an immigrant is anybody from outside this country. But it's people that, but then there's a whole thing at the moment where it's, I was speaking to a brother about this recently, where it was like, I was saying, I was showing him this artist. I go, oh, he's Indian, you know, and he goes, why? I get it, and he's good, but why you got to mention the fact he's Indian? Why can't he just be a dope artist? I went, 100% agree with you, but like even seeing that representation is massive, and I can't explain how big it is. Like for me, for example, you know, when Wonder Woman came out and there was some people going, oh, you're showing Wonder Woman or whatever. I'm like, yeah, whatever. See, there was a little girl that was like 4 years old, and she had the dress on, she had the gown on, and she was just ecstatic that the fact that she's just seeing this film. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I get it that like the same way that women have been oppressed, that minorities have been oppressed, and the lower class has been oppressed, and to a certain extent at the same time. That these people need a hero, they need somebody to look up to, and having that person to relate to is so it's so important. You can find that in everywhere. But even we watched the latest Toy Story film, and it was just seeing, I was like, oh, there's a brown person, there's a black person there. It didn't need to be, but the fact that they were there, I pointed them out. I just felt awesome. I was like, yeah, go there, actually making a difference.
Yeah,
if you took that back 20 years, there wasn't anybody. There's Pocahontas. And there's Jasmine, and at least there was Aladdin and stuff, but there wasn't really the representation for all of our countries is coming, and it's not just playing the stereotype. It's not just playing the Muslim bomber. It's not playing the Nigerian scam artist. They're just playing roles that are good. Well, it's true, isn't it? If you're an actor, Ellis, and you're like, oh, here's a role. What have we got? Oh, 401 scammer. All right, great.
It's 419.
Exactly, 409. That's it. 409. Exactly.
Yeah, 419.
So the fact that you've got the option of, oh, he's just a good actor. But the more you see representation, the more you see people that are, it should be based on who they are. That's fine, and that's always the case. But at the same time, people, to see these people, you'd say, oh, he's just another actor. He's just another actor, and therefore should be treated as a human being. It is so insidious and so simple that when people fight back against it, I kind of used to be, because I'm like, well, why they have a female? I didn't think, but the backlash there was to the female Ghostbusters, I just didn't get. Oh, they can't do that. Why don't they have their own film? I'm like, kids, just don't go see it. It's really not that big a deal. It's like, just they've got women that are super, so whatever. They remade Lion King. That's another thing that I'm talking about, but nobody cares. We can't go on that one because I'll get started. I had a heart attack when I watched that one.
Yeah, I was disappointed. Yeah, I get what you're saying, you know, and it's, to be honest, everything that is going on in the world right now, you know, is, look, I've heard somewhere that they said, and I'm sure, Ellis, you definitely should know this because you've mingled with I'm sure you've said once that you mingled with the people, you've been invited to a certain lodge.
Yeah.
Exactly. So look, you know, we're in a world that's being ruled by freaking 1% of the human population. Just 1% is ruling everything, and in order for them to keep that control and keep that power, they need to divide and conquer. We need to have something to fight amongst ourselves with. If it's either race, religion, you know, a type, culture, we need to have something to just keep ourselves.
Even social distancing, man.
Exactly, right? To just keep ourselves divided. Because the moment we all come together and we all act as one, that's when things will really, really change, and that's when we humans, as a human society, will grab our power back. Now, if that doesn't happen, yeah, we're just gonna. I'm hearing a feedback.
I'm hearing that
too. Yeah. Okay. Yes, but it's gone now. Yeah, if that doesn't happen, then yeah, well, we're not gonna have our power. We're just gonna keep fighting amongst ourselves. We're not gonna go anywhere. We're just gonna keep doing the same thing that we've been doing and this even goes way, way back to when obviously Africa was being colonized. For example, Nigeria now, how they managed to colonize Nigeria. They went into Nigeria, they started doing their colonization stuff. When they went leaving the place, right, what they did, because in Nigeria we always there's this fight amongst Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, all of those, so that they just hated each other. And what they did, they told the Hausa group and said, put your kids in military, put them in military, let them be military, then you guys will be the power of the country and whatnot. And I can't remember exactly what happened then, but they two cultures that don't necessarily get along, they forced them to live together, so they would keep fighting amongst each other. And that's what had always like happened in Nigeria. They kept fighting amongst each other, and they couldn't even solve their own problem, because what they've been doing is always arguing. And that's what they've always done everywhere. Divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. So, Emmanuel, I've just got a question for you. Like, what do you think, even Ellis as well, like, imagine, what do you think Africa would be like without colonization? Like, how do you think it would have been if without the colonization, without the introduction of the idea of poverty? How do you think?
I think we would have a stronger sense of identity.
Yeah.
This is something that I have had to experience mainly after leaving Nigeria and going elsewhere and having the chance to reflect on my experiences. And when I say a stronger sense of identity, what I'm really talking about is an understanding of who we are and a sense of comfort in that understanding. That's something that we don't have because it was robbed from us in the past. Yeah, exactly. And it's something that we are trying to find in pretty much anywhere we can turn, especially in popular spaces, popular culture. And that isn't really doing the job for us. I think we need to look within and connect to our cultures on a deeper level to get to that point. Because we had our identities taken away and replaced with something else, it becomes difficult to even identify what belongs to you and what doesn't. So I think that's the current issue, and I don't know how long it will take.
So imagine if you say that Africans battling with identity issues. So imagine what it is like for African Americans. That's why, I just want to use this opportunity to shout out to all the African Americans out there, because I know there's always this sort of discord between Africans and African Americans over several issues or whatever. But I think the important thing is that as long as you are Black, then you originate from Africa somehow. So there needs to be that sense of unity, regardless. They need to, I hope experiences like what we are seeing now is teaching all of the Black people to understand that they need to be together, right? Actually, regardless of where they're from. Look, I've met people out here in Canada that are from islands like Montserrat. I know lots of people haven't that. Yeah, but also Dominica and just like the UK, right? But even smaller places. I mean, you had dude from Antigua, right? Remember Jamal, right? Yeah.
Shout out Jamal.
Exactly. So but I can tell, like, even when we talk to ourselves and we still have that common thing. There's that common theme that runs through us. So things like this happening should really, I hear that in places like Ghana, they have invited people like African Americans and other Black people in the diaspora to come back home, so to speak, as it were, to get that experience of coming back to a true home and stuff like that. But I think the point is actually being made about Black people from all parts of the world understanding that the challenges are basically the same. So they actually need to come together rather than keep themselves apart. And yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that is very that's very true because that it's like for we black people we don't have throughout for every single ethnicity or race on this planet. I noticed that obviously that we black people are the ones that don't necessarily have an identity. We've lost our identity. We don't necessarily know who we are. Like imagine at school they teach you like, oh, what's our history? Your history begins from slavery. Do you know how stupid that sounds? Like if ask you, like, what is your history? Your history begins from slavery. That does not make sense.
That isn't exactly the case for me, though. But
of course, not for
what we're taught in the West.
Not about the one in America.
What we're taught in the West, and also
about the one in the West.
that culture proliferates to the rest of the world.
Yeah, I'm talking about.
I just needed to make that disparity.
Obviously, exactly. I'm not talking about the one. I'm talking about the one in the West because that's what they teach you. That's why most black people in the West have this ideology or have this idea that their own history begins from slavery. If African America, if you ask them, oh, what's your great grandparents? They would tell you that, oh, my great grandparent was a slave and then he worked his way up to become this, and you're like, no, that should not be your history. Your history should have originated from the place your great grandparents came from, which is the continent of Africa. That's where your history originated from. You're not a slave, you know. And unfortunately, once we black people are able to like ourselves and actually come together and understand that actually we don't necessarily need to backbite each other, stab each other in the back. We need to work together. I think that's when we can all start to grow, basically, and even mend our own problem, because we've got our own issue as well. We've got our own issue that we need to sort out as well. And in order to gain respect, we need to respect ourselves first. You know, you can't ask people, you can't shout for people to respect you and be like, oh, respect me, and not respect yourself. You need to put in that hard work and need to build yourself. Like, imagine, like, for example, China. I've always said this to my brothers, like, wow, there was a time when you would be on the street and then Chinese people would be saying, oh, do you want to buy DVDs? And especially in London, they always do that a lot. And now they're the ones that freaking own like massive companies. They're the ones that are buying other countries. It goes to.
I was going to say that economic empowerment is a key. Like, you know, like say in Africa, you know, for instance, and talking about racism, the reason why racism will continue is if Africa never gets its act together.
Exactly.
That's economic, because the economy, once you have money, you can buy, you can wheel and deal.
Respect.
Do what you want. Yes, you can buy power. Exactly. So you can't be asking for respect, like you say, and you can't sort out your own you can't, you know, build a stable economy and so on and so forth. It's not going to come automatically. So as much as, like I say, as much as, you know, the cry for equality and all the anti-racism moves are being made out there, we, as the people who moan about these things, we also have to self-reflect. Actually, much more than even moaning about the issue, I think.
Yeah.
Much more, because change actually begins with yourself. And once you can study the world around and see how to, you know, fit yourself in, I think you'll be fine, you know, rather than always having it. I mean, it's sad to think that in the meanwhile, some of these heinous crimes, you know, and attacks will still be carried out against like Black people or even just any other oppressed set of peoples. But that should be the driving force towards that freedom, towards that liberation. And the economics of it plays a huge role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It's like I can use this analogy so people can understand. Let's say you're a dude, right? You're overweight, right? And you're overweight and you're depressed with yourself. And because people see you as overweight, they don't respect you. They just see you as someone who is greedy and eat a lot. But then you're like, oh, actually, I don't like people treating me like this, right? You can go out there and tell people that you need to respect me. I may be overweight. You might think of me as you need to respect me. And people won't change. But you're now like, actually, I need to lose some weight, get some muscle on, get shit started. You won't even need to ask for respect. You just need to step outside and people will immediately bow their heads because they see the hard work you've done. That is, it's a simple, basic analogy, but that is what I feel we black people need to do. You know, that's what I feel we need to do. And once we do that, I think things will drastically change.
Yeah, things will drastically. But until then, we hope for the best. And like I've mentioned before, I hope that with the current happenings, that we will be seeing a lot of changes, to come in the next, say, 10, 15, 20 years. I'm really hopeful because we haven't seen anything like this in maybe forever.
That is very, very true.
Definitely.
That is very true. Wow, we've been going for like 2 hours and 32 minutes.
2 hours, man.
I was going to say, that's a beautiful time I think we'll wrap it up here.
I was waiting for Neil to say that's a beautiful time.
Well, yes, because it's been, Neil. Like, before, I was just like, it's going well. I don't want to, I was like, we've gone past, because even when we were on last time, it was an hour 17 when Manny joined last. And now we've come forward to this one, and we've covered so many points. And to be fair, this is kind of what me, Femi, and Dewan kind of envisioned, like long ago, that it was going to be like this. But we couldn't have done it without you guys. So yeah, Ellis, do you want to plug away slightly your social media and stuff, and I'll be in the description for your liking, whoever's listening.
Exactly. So to all the peoples out there, my EP's out, Copperfield EP, go check it out. It's on all the digital streaming platforms you can think of. It's on Amazon, on iTunes, Spotify, Deezer, and so on. My Instagram is basically Big Boy Ellis, one word. So that's BIGBOY and then Ellis, ELLIS. For that's Instagram, and Facebook, it's Big Boy Ellis BBE. That's one word as well. On Twitter, it's Big Boy Ellis _ BBE. So, well, we just search on Google, just search for me, Big Boy Ellis, and you'll find me.
Yeah,
beautiful.
So,
and
yes, brother Ellis.
Check out my website, bigboyellis.com. How could I forget? bigboyellis.com.
That's beautiful. Yeah, make sure you check it out. He's putting some beautiful stuff out. And Manny, the floor is yours.
Man, first things first, I'm so happy I got the chance to speak to Brother Ellis today, man.
Yeah.
I love the rest of you, but I'm particularly excited about speaking to Ellis because I haven't spoken to him in years.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And what else can I say? I was thinking about the point of all of these conversations that we have, and I was thinking about how it can make a change in the real world. And what I have in mind at the moment is perhaps if we try to implement the things we talk about in real life and inspire those around us, that could create a positive and hopeful chain of events, maybe, and even more people can be inspired by all of these findings that we've been able to arrive at from our conversations together.
Yes, that's perfect.
That's fantastic, man. Yeah, thank you so much. And your information, where can they find you?
Yeah.
Well, I have a site, and it is johnsonee.com. So that's JOHNSONEE.com, literally. And on social media, any social media site, you just search for Manny J King and you'll find me. So that's MANNYJAYKING.
Yeah.
Beautiful. It's been amazing to have you guys on, and we really hope that you'll come again. So from us, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like, comments, tell me what you think. And this has been a beautiful chat, guys. So thank you so much from me, Dewan, and probably Femi. I imagine had a beautiful time as well.
Yeah, definitely did. I enjoyed obviously speaking to everyone again. It was a surprise Emmanuel joining us, and it was a great addition as well. And it was just good catching up with you and Ellis as well. Everything was good. So hopefully we'll speak again. And when we do upgrade our podcast into maybe more visual stimulating podcast, I don't know, maybe you guys would like to obviously come back again and show your faces again, and
chat
these are the residents. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll speak to you all in the next podcast. Goodbye.
All right, guys, take care.
No worries.